the payment receipt from Zelle
Okay.
showing that she made
Show me yours there and everything else, which, if she had made this up,
Because the night that he was tied for edibles, accused me of calling the cops on him.
The plaintiff claims he loaned his live-in ex-girlfriend money. However, now that they've broken up, he can't get his money back. He's suing her for the money he loaned her.
Mr. Petrella,
Yes,
you dated Ms. Judson for how long?
about 2.5 years,
Okay, and you two lived together for how long?
about 2.
All right. You have filed this lawsuit for $3,370.
Honestly, that's a lot of money, and it's possible it could be owed, but not necessarily at once. But there's no way the plaintiff comes out as a saint in this because the defendant, who is now married, believes she doesn't owe him anything. She's countersuing for harassment.
I believe this was when he was holding my car hostage. He said that I owed him money, and I'm not sure, he was keeping everything on an envelope, really. He could have written anything on that envelope.
It's either the plaintiff is a big red flag or he just loves to document everything in his life. Being in a relationship with someone and documenting everything is really weird. There's no commitment, and it's like you're waiting for the shoe to drop and call it quits. But in this case, it doesn't seem that way because the defendant is not at all surprised. Technically, she lived with him.
Fourth, what did you pay for?
A lot of things. We lived together.
Right.
So,
Did you pay for his car or anything like that, or?
He never paid for my car.
Okay.
I was under his insurance. He took basically over everything.
I actually believe the defendant. She claims she's paid him everything she owed. They were living together and it can't possibly be only the plaintiff paying everything.
$100 on April 24th, and $100 every paycheck until the total of $2,000 is paid. So when you say, this isn't that I owe him money, Judge, this is when he held my car hostage, by that...
Well, here's what precipitated the breakup. According to him, he claims she was a heavy drinker and she once drove her car into his house. Well, she was intoxicated that night and he noticed that she was getting text messages from someone, but she wouldn't let him see the phone, so an argument broke out and it transpired to a chase.
That ended in the driveway with her chasing me outside because I had her phone. And it ended in the driveway and some things were said and I called the police and they had her leave the house.
His name was on her car's documents and the insurance, which is kind of a crime. That's like defrauding the insurance company. But it's kind of the defendant's fault. She wanted a higher premium insurance. Well, according to the defendant, the story was different. After the fight, they broke up, but then she had a DUI and the car was towed to his house.
When did you have the DUI?
When?
Yeah,
May 17th, I believe.
So the car got towed to his house.
And then within days, I actually was admitted to the hospital for emergency surgery.
The defendant says that after they broke up, she saw the plaintiff stalking her, calling her bosses to get her fired because she was an alcoholic. And one of the worst things he did was that after she got a DUI and she was in the hospital fighting for her life, he decided to post something on Facebook.
Having surgery, this is what he's putting on Facebook. And I have coworkers that live down the street from him.
This is
on a main
what
intersection.
happens when a loser drinks and drives. Boy, you really know how to woo a girl.
That was our...
Surprisingly, she married just 8 weeks after breaking up with him. She must have been so desperate to escape him, and based on the information she's revealed in court, it might have been the best decision, because he seems like a real creep.
Just one instance that I actually started filming. This is him driving around in his convertible, blaring music. And this is just one time.
Dude, get over her. It's humiliating.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But you'll think he took a hint then? Well, you're wrong. And after all the weird emails he sent her, he decided to invite her to his party, and at this point her husband was ticked. He decided to go and have a word with him, and it may have involved a few words exchanged and then the police came. The plaintiff claims the defendant's husband pushed him to the ground a couple of times, but the defendant claims it isn't true.
Got problems, just go home, man. That's what the shirt says.
But
So if I beat him up,
why did you actually show up?
because he was coming to my work, calling my boss, showing up, driving to my work,
So what'd you do?
and I actually work across the street from her.
So what'd you do?
I went over there and asked them, you need to stop this.
It's embarrassing. If he was 20 years younger, one would assume it's a phase before they start listening to podcasts teaching them to hate women. But this man is just creepy.
According to your math on this piece of paper, it's $1,900.
She made one payment on the 31st of $100,
Oh, 31st of what?
May.
What is it you just flashed at me?
The payment receipt from Zelle
Okay.
showing that she
Honestly, this case just seems like another attempt at bothering her. He doesn't seem to want the money back desperately, else he'll have all the proof needed, and he keeps smiling for some reason. The judge is done with them at this point.
Months, it's
I
ridiculous.
find that you owe him $2,000 for the debts that I am positive you still owe him, and I find that he owes you $2,000 for the harassment. That is my verdict. Leave each other alone, other than show up in court. Make sure you show up in court
Absolutely.
and get the restraining order.
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Honor.
The plaintiff claims she sold a puppy to the defendant, her friend's sister. She says the defendant never paid for the dog, so she took the dog back. The defendant put up flyers around the neighborhood claiming the plaintiff stole her dog.
And I'm friends with her sister. So she told me, oh, you know, she might be interested in purchasing a dog. So I called her up and she was like, sure. She came over, she saw the puppy.
The plaintiff claims she gave her a payment plan to pay for the dog and they both agreed. But unfortunately, the defendant had other plans. Sometime the plaintiff lost her phone and she lost all her numbers, so she couldn't ask the defendant for the money.
I didn't have her number.
But she's a friend of your sister's, so your sister has
Yes,
her number.
her sister, she said she didn't have her number as well.
Her sister didn't.
Her sister didn't have-
You're a friend of her sister. And
Yes.
she didn't have
Her sister didn't have
her
her
own
number.
sister's number?
Yes.
And then how did you come to?
She was near her apartment once, so she walked to the defendant's apartment and the neighbors directed her to where the defendant stayed. She went into the apartment and got the dog, which isn't right. The worst part is that she kept the dog after.
It wasn't her dog yet because she never paid for it.
Wait, but for a year and a half, you had zero problem with that. And then you decide, what the heck, I'll just keep the dog.
No.
Yes, it is what you did. You kept the dog. Now, you owe her money for a dog for 2 years?
$50.
The defendant didn't call the plaintiff a liar. She just says she's not telling the story. From the beginning, she didn't want the dog because the mother and the father of the dog were brother and sister. The plaintiff didn't like that, so she looked for ways to take the dog off her hands.
Now, 2 years later, is because the father dies. And she had to put him to sleep 2 weeks prior to her taking my dog.
Okay, so she comes to your house. You haven't seen her in a year and a half. You know you owe her money.
I said, as soon as she came to my house, I said, girl.
The defendant says the plaintiff wanted something from her. That's why she let her keep the dog even after not completely paying. She wanted a man's number, but the man said no. The rejection didn't sit right with the plaintiff, so she stopped talking to the defendant.
No.
The police haven't been to see you?
I haven't been there. I haven't. The last thing.
Have they been
that I
calling
see-
you and you haven't gone?
No. I found this on my door.
Wait, we're going to talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Have the police contacted you?
No, I have not spoken to
He
anyone.
been out.
Well, she basically stole the dog, so the police got involved and they didn't find her when they got to her house. So they made a poster about a missing dog.
Oh, he made that up. The lady detective, I seen her yesterday. That's who gave me the
Who
paperwork.
made this up? You've said he
Detective
and
Marshall,
she
he's right
in
down
two
there.
different.
No, the detective
Parts
I
of-
seen yesterday, she gave me the paperwork. That's why I said she first. And
Going back for the dog is ridiculous. For whatever reason, she paid her $150 and the last $50 is what she owed. And that's the reason she decided to take the dog after 2 years. That's really petty. And the worst part is that she sold the dog to another person.
I told him, you don't have to arrest her if she give me back my dog. On the text,
Show me the proof on how much money is owed. You said that you had a text that would show how much money is owed. Yeah, this says exactly the opposite. It says what she said.
The plaintiff sued for defamation, but that's not possible because she rightly reacted to her stealing the dog. She sold the dog to a 15-year-old and now the judge is ordering her to do something very difficult.
As follows. On your lawsuit against her, I am ordering her to pay you $150. On her lawsuit against you, I am giving her an order, finding her to be the rightful owner of that dog, and ordering you to return the dog. That is my judgment.
The plaintiff claims he rented a room in the defendant's apartment, but he was forced to move out after she lied and he was served with a domestic violence protection order. He's suing her for rent and a security deposit.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Salisbury.
Oh, yes, miss.
So you rented a room in Janae's apartment, and the deal was that you were going to be living with Janae and her partner. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. What went wrong?
The defendant claims that the plaintiff was a slob who tried to put his hands on her, so she went to court to file for order of protection. And she also claims they broke their agreement by moving out early.
Things were fine for the first couple of weeks. Going forward, about midway through June, after I had already paid rent
For July.
things stopped being so friendly, stopped communicating with me.
Well, what went wrong?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
so-
let me ask you then. What went wrong?
I would say
Things started to change because the plaintiff had a dog and he didn't clean after the dog and himself, which bothered her, and so she started to act differently towards him.
one night he was high off of edibles and he accused me of calling the cops on him, and he looked like he
What?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
wait. So, everybody stop. Did you call the cops on him?
No, not at all. He was
Okay.
just high.
All right. Who is the person with you? Is that
My
the other?
girlfriend.
Okay, come on up, girlfriend. What's your name?
I'm Kimberly.
Kimberly.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you there that night that she's talking?
A lot more has to have been going on. People don't just act out like that for no reason. It's a process, a butterfly effect. But suddenly the plaintiff didn't want to live there anymore. Well, here's the plaintiff's version of events.
What we were going to have a talk about. I was supposed to leave for vacation the next day. That's when she started screaming, "Stop attacking me, stop attacking me, stop attacking me," at the top of her lungs. This made me uncomfortable. The girlfriend and I...
Well, wait, back it up. Verbally attacking her or physically attacking her?
She says he was cursing at her and she felt uncomfortable, so she started screaming at him to stop attacking her. The plaintiff admits that he might have been high on edibles. It wasn't until the girlfriend of the defendant came to interfere and help them on the aspect they lacked: communication.
Cleaning around here, that's what the whole issue is. And I was like, okay, well...
Had that not been discussed with you prior to that already?
No, because I felt like I was doing my share of the cleaning.
So it had not been discussed with you until that point?
No.
All right.
No.
So
Up
go
to
on.
that point, yeah, I didn't
Okay,
believe...
did you or did you not?
Communication unfortunately failed when he tried to use a whiteboard to assign roles, but the defendant happened to be triggered about that and then brought racism to the issue. And at that point, he was over it. He moved out the next morning. Her mom sued him for breach of lease, but fortunately for the plaintiff, he won the case. All he wants is his rent back and the deposit.
Gotten another roommate. At this point, we're going to stop the hemorrhaging. That's called the duty of the defendant to mitigate their damages, to stop the hemorrhaging.
And he wanted to
now,
come
hold
back.
on, I'm still in the middle of
Sorry.
something. So that's one thing. But another thing is, if you make a situation so intolerable that it is...
Well, he had asked to go back into the house before July because he was living in his car. He texted her that, and later in the day, a sheriff came to his work to serve him an order of protection. That's just taking things too far.
All the messages that I had with him are deleted because I got another phone. My phone cracked. He kept calling me and texting me, "I'm coming back." I even have this email.
Wait, I'm sorry. How is that a domestic violence injunction? You charge a guy rent, and he wants to be able to use what you charged him.
I mean, it's not like I was saying he put his hands on me, and it wasn't.
That's kind of misplaced. She wasn't supposed to do that. That's using the law to your advantage. She probably didn't want to let him back in, so she decided to do that. But she still has to give him back his rent.
You're going to get your $750 back, and you're going to get your $500 back. But pain and suffering, this is a contracts case. And I find that they breached, once you asked to get back in and you weren't allowed to get back in, I find that they breached their right to be able to keep the July rent.